Call to order, council meeting, Norway, Michigan, 7 o'clock. Pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Mary.
Mrs. Brew?
Here.
Mr. Babalani?
Here.
Dr. Hayes? Mr. Meneghini?
Here.
Mr. Pop?
Here. We need a motion to approve Dr. Hayes being absent.
I make that motion to
Support.
excuse Dr. Hayes.
Support. Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Meneghini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Approval of minutes of the regular meeting of December 19th and the executive session of December 19th.
I have a question first. Why do we have a new agenda? Is there something added to this?
Yeah, Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec.
We received an application today.
It's number 6 there now.
Okay.
I make a motion, we approve the regular meeting notes from December 19th and the executive session notes for December 19th.
Support.
Mr. Meneghini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Approval of manifest 2017-1 in the amount of $859,355.08. Any questions? Mr. Pop?
I have none tonight.
Mrs. Brew?
I have one under recreation. Unemployment compensation. I know it's for a little bit, a small amount, but who do we have that is unemployed in recreation?
We don't have anybody, that's the insurance we pay, and it's based on each employee's first $9,000 of earnings per year. So that ends up being, I think, the kid at the skating rink, but that's just the insurance we pay quarterly.
Okay, so that's not an unemployment.
No, it's not a
we're paying.
claim, it's just the
Okay.
insurance we pay, and that's how it's based on each employee's first $9,000 of earnings. So the first quarter, you see most of the expense, then at the end of the year, we just pick up like your part-time employees.
Okay, because I guess because it said unemployment, I thought we had
Yeah.
somebody on
No,
unemployment.
it's just our compensation, our insurance that we pay.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Babalani?
I had the same one Candy has, and I also have one on the building grounds. We paid $36 for a regular snow shovel. On the top item under the building and grounds. And just looks like a standard 24-inch shovel. And then on the bottom, Ray, on the Public Works, the State of Michigan 2017 My Deal,
Yes.
what is that?
That's
Training.
yeah, that's a co-op program that we're a member, it's a membership fee, and it's part of the state co-op buying, so we would use the My Deal for vehicles. We use it for the salt mainly. It's for salt, to buy the bulk salt. So you pay a membership fee and then you use their already preferred rates.
So there wasn't any actual training, it says training and travel on the bottom.
No, that's a membership.
Okay. I got one more here, Lee. On page 5, the GoTech charges were like $3,500 total between the 2547 and the 969. I seen it was listed into the executive notes also. That's takes care of the water tank. Now that problem is all set.
They have that fired up and hopefully that's solving the problem, yep.
I know the ground is all froze now, but was anything ever done to divert that water, or is that on
Well,
the
that's
project list?
That's a project list item. We're gonna redo the piping and get it out towards the road. We're gonna divert it towards the road because, what happens is, if it goes back into the pit like we had it before, you don't see when there's an overflow. When it comes out towards the road, somebody will see it. So we need to have it.
So that's gonna be done in the spring.
That'll be done, yeah, this spring.
Okay, that's all I have.
Spring, early summer, as soon as we can get to that.
That's all I have.
I got one question here. Page 2. First item, supplies, MSC Industrial Supply, 50-pound bags of ice thaw, $639. Can't we get that in bulk, or
I think that's smaller bags, isn't it, Mary?
think
50,
so.
50-pound bags? That's, I mean, what do they do with that besides
That's for
throwing
the
it?
buildings? Yeah, it's for the buildings.
For they use that much?
You have multiple buildings.
Yeah. Okay, and to answer your question on a snow shovel, Mark, I just paid $36 for a good steel scraper shovel.
Yeah, I thought.
They're heavy and they're expensive. Okay, approval. We need a motion for approval of manifest.
I make a motion, we approve manifest 2017-01 in the amount of $859,355.08.
Support.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Bogalani?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes. Anyone wishing to address the council on agenda items only may do so at the podium. State your name and address for the record. Comments shall be limited to 5 minutes per person. And at the end of the meeting, if you have anything at all to say, you can address the council. Okay, Ray, shall we move on to appointments and presentations here?
Sure. Apologize for bringing this up at the last minute, adding it to the agenda tonight, but we received an application for one of our open seats on one of our boards. Remember, in late December, we filled our boards and committees, and we had an open seat on Parks and Recreation. We had an open seat on Museum. We did receive an application from Sarah Beadala for the Parks and Recreation Committee, and so we're recommending to move forward with appointing her to that board.
Any comments or questions?
I
Somebody
make
like-
a motion, we approve Sarah Beadla to the Parks and Recs Board for a one-year term expiring January of 2018.
Support.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Bogalani?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Okay, moving on. Ordinance number 425, Water Ordinance Amendment. Ray, you want to take it over?
Yep, this is, like we mentioned at our last meeting, we're bringing it forward for council consideration tonight. This is an upgrade to our water ordinance. You'll see we also have one for the sewer ordinance. This is something that is commonly done, especially when we do large projects with rural development. That's part of our task when we do our paperwork with RD to get the job started, is to do a thorough review of our governing documents. Our water ordinance, outside of some minor changes that were made over the last decade, is relatively older and had some new language needed to be incorporated. And so something we've talked about over the last meeting is to upgrade that language. I can open it up for conversation or questions. Mr. Tinty took this back from our last meeting and made the changes that we talked about. So
I just got one comment here, or a question. On one of the new items, 263, maintenance of and freezing of water service line. The consumer shall at all times maintain their water service line in good working order. In the event a water service line shall freeze, the consumer shall, within 1 year of the freeze, undertake all necessary actions to prevent future freezing of the consumer water service line. So now hopefully we don't have a winter like we had 2 winters ago now. We're responsible just up to the shutoff,
correct.
right?
That's correct.
And if their line, how are we gonna find out if it's our line that froze from the main to the cutoff or from the cutoff into their house?
What we can do, or what we have done is, we do a thaw procedure on the water line. If it's a situation where we have an unusual winter, like we had a few years ago, that's happening on a more frequent basis, I don't believe it falls into this provision as tightly, because it's an unusual winter, typically 6 foot deep. We do have some water lines in the system that on an annual basis, they're asking to run their water because if they don't, they'll freeze. So that's their responsibility to come in when the weather is good to, fix that line and do something. If they fix it and it doesn't work, then the next year they have to come in and try something.
Well, when we go to thaw, where do we thaw from? Do we
Well-
just right from the shut off in, or does that come back out to the main also?
We actually go across. See, here's the question, because if you go from the shut off in and it thaws, and then the water doesn't solve the problem, you didn't solve the problem. So
Right.
what we've done in the past is we've gone across the street and tied in. And so that way it ensures that it catches our section and theirs. So in a thaw situation, we just want to make sure we get the customer back with water. And, that way we're not really splitting hairs on which side of the shut off it is.
Okay.
Right. If it becomes an annual thing, then investigation is definitely going to be done. And, we know from the depths of the service lines that, or in certain situations, that they need to do something with their water line.
A lot of the lines up by the water tower are only a couple feet down, and you can't go any deeper with them, so.
Right.
A lot of them is a main problem.
Well, we lowered that main though when we went through there on that one
Well, by
project.
mixes, I think it's only a couple feet down.
Yeah, that gets back up onto the property. I think when we did that project, we actually lowered the main, so we fixed that problem. So it's back onto the homeowner at that point.
Well, I'm just wondering because, as far as I'm concerned, we're off to a bad start with a cold winter here.
Yes. Yeah. We did get some snow.
Yeah.
Helps a little bit.
I make a motion, we approve ordinance 425, the water ordinance amendment.
Support.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Ordinance number 426, sewer ordinance amendment.
Okay, I think it's the same commentary. Again, we're updating our ordinance. In this particular case, I think our sewer ordinance is even a little more out of date than our water ordinance, because last major project was in '78. So, but basically it's the same. They're pretty consistent in the comments.
I know that Mr. Tinty is very, very involved here, and there's a couple of new items. I know everything he does is going to be right.
I make a motion to accept ordinance number 426, sewer ordinance amendment.
Support.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Item number 9, approval USDA RDWWTP project pay request number 2.
Okay, we had 3 items in a row of pay requests for 3 projects. Each project needs to be, or each pay request needs to be done separately for each individual project. Of course, we have the wastewater treatment plant is one project. We have the sewer collection system as a second project, and the water distribution as a third project. The water and the sewer, the water distribution and the sewer collection are going to be done, they're in the same street, so they're going to be done at the same time. But because they're split into 3 separate projects, we need 3 separate motions. This is going to be the procedure as we move forward. Since we closed the bond issue on December 29th, we had some of these bills that we held off until we could now go through our financing. So,
No other comments? I guess we need a motion.
I make a motion, we approve the USDA-RDWWTP project payment request number 2.
Support.
Do I have to have the amount in there, Grant? You want the amount in there?
I think
The amount is $2,700.15.
Support.
Mr. Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes. Next item, pretty much the same thing, USDRD, except sewer collection project pay request number 2. Any comments, Ray?
No comments.
Anybody else, any questions? Or pretty basic stuff here.
I make a motion, we approve the USDA-RD sewer collection project payment request number 2 for the amount of $7,087.55.
I will support.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Okay, approval, USDA-RD water distribution project pay request. Any comments? Need a motion.
I make a motion, we approve the USDA-RD water distribution project payment request number 2 for the amount of $6,395.53.
Support.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Last item, approval renewable energy credit sale agreement. Ray?
Okay, thank you. We have for you tonight a request to purchase renewable energy credits from the city, for the city of Norway, or from the city of Norway. Just a little background, under the 2008 energy bill, hydro was classified as renewable power, and under that bill, there was a 10% requirement that each utility, electric utility, they had a requirement to have 10% or more renewable energy in their portfolio. Since hydro is considered renewable energy, we roughly have 75 to 80% on an annual basis of our energy. And what the law stated was that the difference, 70%, 60% that we earn those credits then, and they're put into a bank. This bank is, it's a run through MISO. WPPI helps us with this, but it's basically in our name. So, and it's run where utilities that do not have 10%, they would then buy credits from organizations like us that have them available to sell. Under the new law that just passed, that went to 15%, and their target is 25% over a period of time. That was just a target, it's not a mandatory, but right now it's 15%. So what we do is usually about this time of the year or towards the fall, we start getting inquiries as to the sale of those credits, and you know, I received one of those inquiries. Most of the time it's done through brokerage firms. This was a direct inquiry. If you notice in our contract, we put together a contract for sale. There is a confidentiality section in the contract, and so I can say that the amount of the credit is for $16,800, and that's cash coming to the city. So
That money stays in the electric department, correct?
that money is with, if you say nothing, it stays in the electric department, but you can have it go wherever you choose as council. But in the past, you've used that for other projects. You know, you've decided to send that to different funds as that comes in. However, at this point, because it's also a contract, you know, it's appropriate for us to have you approve that contract and authorize the city manager to sign that and to execute that. Because I'm the user of the system, I go out and then I make those transfers, and we work and get the invoice and have that money distributed to us.
think
I
it
would
should
like
go-
to see this money stay in the electric department.
I agree with that. We took some money out and we never know when something's gonna break down there, so I agree with that. I think it should go into electric department.
One thing I can say is that, you know, I spent some time making some inquiries as to the market. I can say that we, you know, the credits are done on a per credit basis. You know, you do these things based on, you can see it by the amounts, it's based on thousands of recs that companies buy. We currently have 2015, 2016 credits, and what you do is you sell the earliest credits first. They have a 3-year window to which they can use them. So somebody buying, if you bought 2018 or 2016 credits, they would be good through 2019. So sometimes these companies will, or these brokers will look at buying blocks and distributing them as such. We were able to, with this sale, we were able to clear our 2015s and some of our 2016s. So, and they were sold at market rate.
Okay, a question, Ray. Okay, now it's 10% and it's gonna go up.
It's
Does
up
that
15
mean-
now.
It's up to 15. Does that mean now we're gonna have more credits to sell then?
Nope, we'll have less because.
We'll have less.
Yep, because that's an extra 5 credits that we need to use for our own, or 5% that we need to use for our own. It also could mean, it has a reverse effect though, that then others have to buy more. And the price could go up over time. If it went to 25, you know, I was actually on the, kind of on the outside of the conversation, because in one sense, it didn't affect us at all. And in another sense, it really could have made our credits worth more. So, you know, like working with the Michigan Municipal Electric Association, I kind of had to stay a little quiet on it because, you know, most of them were affected by increase in percentages. And so, you know, as a member of that board, I worked that closely. And
So the more power we produce, the more credits we get.
correct. Yeah, it's pretty automatic because we have to provide FERC with reports so that they know what our generation is, and those are applied. Those credits are then automatically applied, and then they put into that bank. And
I would think that the credits would be worth more than that because there isn't a lot of surrounding communities that produce their own power.
well, there's a lot of credits out there. That's the thing. It's whether the market has a glut or not. Because you have the large wind farms, and it's not just Michigan. It's Wisconsin and Iowa. It's all the Midwest. So you have the wind farms in Iowa and even some of the hydros up in Manitoba. They put into the same bank. So, you know, it all depends on the rules of the state. In the previous law, you could only buy Michigan RECs, which helped us out. In the new law, they stripped that out. So now you can buy across the board. So that devalues us a little bit.
Is it just municipalities that have the credits, or is it like somebody that has
No, it's
an actual solar system?
It's everybody in the system, investor-owned, co-ops, munis. We're all part of that same system. So you either are a buyer or a seller, depending on if you produce or don't produce. Everybody who sells retail electric has to come up with the 15%.
So a private party that puts on a solar system onto their house and sells power back to the system, do they get some credits at all?
No, they don't qualify under this. It has to
Okay.
be a registered utility.
Oh, okay.
Any other comments or questions? Then I guess you need a motion for your approval to sign this agreement.
That's correct.
Can we put into that motion that the money goes back into the electric department? I'll make a motion that Mr. Anderson sign the renewable energy credit sale agreement and that the money gets transferred directly into the electric department.
Support.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes,
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Anyone wishing to address the council on any item of interest may do so. Mr. Bilski, state your name and address.
Good evening, Council. Alan Bilski, Pine Creek Road. After attending the last couple of meetings, I have some thoughts. The walking path around Lake Strawberry Lake for $285,000, which is gonna take 60,000 of taxpayer dollars for 20% match. I'm not a thrilled person about having that Spring is fine if it is funded, the engineering, construction, and maintenance forever comes out of donated money.
The building wasn't going over the Norway Spring.
Well, the investment of the building, if you can sell bricks for $100, $200, or $300, I'd even buy a brick. But the thing is, in my opinion, that's a lot of expense for absolutely no return. And just a thought, you know, if you can find donations, I'd be happy. Okay, council selling land. You don't know down the road where the next council and the ones after that that are succeeding you, what they're gonna run into if they need that land for something. And, you know, I just know at the road commission, I keep comparing that because I work on that work. We find that we don't know the future, and a lot of times that land is valuable as things develop that we don't know about yet. So, just a thought about selling any city land to me. It's a good question.
Well, the parcels that were being sold were gonna increase the taxes in the city of Norway and the utility structure, so I don't believe that there's anything that was sold that would be able to be developed down the road. They're pretty much all residential lots that are being sold.
Well,
And getting
a
back-
residential lot is fine, because then you might get a new house and you might get new taxes.
Exactly. So I mean, we're not in the real estate market, and we do feel that the property that we bought behind the golf course, it does need to be developed. How long do you want to hang on to something and not get any money in? I mean, that property was bought as an investment. I don't know if that's what you're referring to,
No, I didn't know.
but you know, there's a couple 40s back there that could produce a lot of tax revenue for the city of Norway and utilities. So I mean, I don't believe that we should hang on to stuff like that and hold it indefinitely.
I agree. But working with some developers, and I've known people to have very bad effect with developers, for the city to get involved with one, you really need to have something to guarantee that you're not gonna get stuck.
Well, that's not, you know, I don't believe that the city was looking at getting involved with the developer. The city was looking, I believe, if that is the parcels that you're talking about, was gonna be set aside as a subdivision lots and sold. So it's not
Like
partnering.
Springview stuff?
Yeah, so it's not partnering up with anybody, and that's the kind of thing that it brings money into the school system, and it brings money.
Taxes are
So,
taxes.
so I mean, I don't know what you're talking about as far as holding on to property, Al. Which property were you
Maybe
wanting
I
to hold on
generalized
to?
Too much. I was thinking of that strip over on the highway with the 50 by 500, where if there's a moratorium on billboards, what's,
It's not being sold.
it's not being sold.
It's not being sold. I got another plan, and I took my offer off the table.
All right. I rescind my,
But I mean, it's, those property sales are looked at through the other departments like the planning commission and the tax assessor looks at them and Mr. Anderson looks at them. And,
I agree, if you can sell lots, that's great, with a commitment to build. So,
and that was an unbuildable lot.
wasn't a lot,
It was an unbuildable lot.
yeah, but it was possibly a billboard site for year-round income for the city. You know, you could sell billboard space. At least-
Well, that's a dead horse, Al.
Yeah. It's
a
And
dead horse.
I appreciate,
Moratorium on
Yeah.
billboards?
Yes, there is. You cannot buy a billboard permit from the state of Michigan.
Not even the city, you can't build it. or-
No, you have to have you have to have a state billboard
Well, I
permit.
just thought it could generate income without raising taxes. Okay, the last thing is, Saginaw Street. I found out what happened to it. In the process of building the, bike path, the county was loading out of Lori's Pit, city tandems, county triaxles, county loader, 2 scoops on the city's trucks, 3 scoops on the county
I don't know about that, because the Jacqueline Steel truck is still going down that road. Well, not right now, no.
Well, that's all my point was that, well, the reason why it got chewed was because the city and the county were all into the bike path. Okay, and, at the meeting we had about trucks, I mentioned a road repair that the county is experimenting with that's, we're having, looks like good results. And I know Lance said that it was a 5-year fix, but really, it's looking more like a 10-year fix. So, you might wanna go and look at that in the springtime and see if that would work on some of your streets and roads in the city to save some money and keep some people happier or whatever. So it's
Where's that at, Al?
it's a process that, Baco, we hired Baco to do it, they've been doing it all over the UP, where they, mix up a special mix of blacktop with fine rock, not normal gravel that they use in regular mixed blacktop. And, I'm not sure if the asphalt's special too or not, but it's, because it's a fine mix, it'll go through in thin layers through the paper. And, we only put it on about maybe 1 inch thick. Fills the ruts, all the potholes, you blow the road off with a blower and all that, clean the potholes out, go across this thing with the paver, looks like brand new blacktop. And, we did about a mile and a half of the Upper Pine Creek Road before the Lake Antline end. And, it went, half of it went one winter, now we just put down the other half in October, I believe, this year, October, November. So, only one part of it went through a winter, but it didn't, there was no negative effect with the plowing or anything, nothing came up. And it cost, I think the first batch cost $25,000. I think it was $25,000 both times, and we did a mile and a half. So that's quite a bit of distance for that kind of money. And it's, 11-foot lanes. The highway was great, I mean, it was all top mark, looked like alligator skin before, so.
Scott, was that parking lot mix? Was that the parking lot mix that we were talking about?
No, that's an ultra-thin overlay. MDOT's been pretty big on those lately. The fix, he's talking about the county, the person Lance Mulberg's out, but it was a great use of it, good structural condition on the road. And it is a surface fix, but yeah, all 5 years.
What's the Payzer requirement for that?
I almost wouldn't want to put it in the base rating rank because.
Well, does it have to be in an intermediate state?
Yeah, intermediate.
Can't be in a failed, like 4 or less.
Yeah, and it depends on what the failure is. If it's any kind of a base failure at all, it's not the right fix for it.
But can you have all the alligator cracking and, you can have all of that?
It can put it, yeah,
Oh,
especially
okay.
if it's especially just alligator cracking, it's not.
If there's actual potholes, can you fill those? You fill those first and then you go over it?
Wisconsin
The
does.
paper puts it in, they roll it.
Even a full width pot?
Yeah, you're only putting it on this thick, but underneath the paver, as it goes over a hole that deep, it comes off flush on top and it bottoms.
Does the paver slow up then, so it gives it time, or does it just automatically?
Well, it didn't do it, the Pine Creek had plenty of those spots, I mean, going down Lake Antone Hill was really bad, and, nothing happened to it last winter.
Okay. And you said Baco did this?
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Well, appreciate your input, Al.
Thanks for hearing me, and I could be wrong about the stuff, but.
The one thing I have to disagree with you a little bit on is, you can't believe the traffic around Strawberry Lake, that walking path. I mean, granted, the $60,000 is a lot of money, but what we're getting for that grant, it's pretty hard to pass up, and that Park and Recs has been working on this for 5-6 years, trying to get that path all fixed up, and like I said, it's amazing how many people use that, even in wintertime. You got people over there going around.
They're making it now.
But I appreciate your input.
Thanks for hearing me.
Thanks, Al.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, staff by council comments, anybody? Mr. Pop, anything to say?
I was gonna say, just make sure we're getting snow again tonight. Make sure to shovel for your mailman. Be safe.
That article was in the paper.
Was it?
Yeah.
Well, I was just, the other day when I was out shoveling, I remember last year I had a little slip on my mailbox from the mailman. Can you please clean off the sidewalk? So that made me remember it.
Mrs. Brew?
I was wondering where we're at down the dam and how things are running down there.
I think things are running pretty well right now. We're not running all our machines, so the water is lower, but it is higher than normal. I know Way Dam, they released some additional water.
I noticed that the sturgeon, it looks pretty high for this time of the year.
Yeah, it's high for this
Yeah.
time of year, so we're doing well, but we're not running all the machines.
I was just gonna say, well, what we got running is running good?
Yeah, so far. Yeah. We are gonna have to relook at number one, like I talked about, because when we inspected it, it did have some of the cracking. So we're gonna have to go back in, and we're gonna be talking about that this spring. So we're gonna have to, well, I'm really interested now to see if the repairs that we did for the number 2 unit,
How they're,
yeah, because we thickened up all those crotch areas, and if that takes care of it, then that may be what we wanna do with the number one.
will we go in and check that before we fix number one then?
Oh, yeah, we want to check that. I'd want to take that out and check number 2 and see how it worked. The timing will be just about right, because right now what we're doing is we're leaning on number 2 more than number 1, and putting more hours on our number 2 unit. So we're just going to have to see how some of this reacts. And I have the figures for if we completely reforge some of those runners. And that would be a long-term process, and like I said, we'll get into that this spring when we talk about it.
That's it.
Mr. Babalani?
Yeah, I got a couple, Lee. Wondering how we're doing on the estimates of the cross streets for our project next year. Have we been working on that?
We've been working on some of that, yeah.
Okay. The generator compressor for blowing out the lines, I seen in the executive session that you were talking about that. I have a hard time believing that wouldn't be a good investment, because I was talking to Mary and we spend $891 on a compressor to blow those lines out every year. And I know Tool Time sells a lot of that stuff once they have it in service for a while at a pretty good rate. And I still think we would be much better off
Mark,
to.
I asked them to keep looking at the pricing. So their initial comment, I gave you their initial comment, but I asked them to continue looking at the pricing, because I feel similar to what you do on it. That you have a piece of equipment and it can be, you have it, there are other opportunities and things that you're doing that you can utilize it. So
I think Tool
I'd like
Time
to
would be
keep
a
working on it.
good talk to have with Tim up there.
Sure.
Because I think that could pay for itself in about 4 years. Tree cutting, was hoping that we were gonna get some trees cut this winter. I know we talked about it. We got perfect opportunity when we don't have any snow. I look at some of the cable lines and the internet lines, and there's a lot of trees growing around them, even right over here by Mrs. Bertoldi's old house. Sidewalks on the main street during the snow season. It seems like they clear around some of the posts, and some of them they do not. And I got a hard time with that somebody doesn't just take a shovel, and there's about 4 feet behind the poles that are right in the center of the sidewalk. There's no cleaning around them. Some of them, if they can get the skid steer or the sidewalk machine around it, they'll go and do it. The other ones are not done. We still don't have a report for Mr. Borga. I'm hoping at the next meeting there is one.
Well, I want to address that. There was a cable report in the last packet. And as I mentioned, the reports, some of those reports, it's like you mentioned on the cable, they don't come in until we get the bills out and they rectify and we do some of the things with the billing. So what I've done is I put a date of the 10th. And like I mentioned in the memo, that I will put those reports in for the second meeting of the month. That way I have all the reports together, rather than piecemeal it. Well, I'll get some in the first week, then some in the second week. So I'll put them all in the second meeting. So that's why in this one you didn't have any reports.
But the
because
last
still
one,
waiting
we
on it.
didn't have one in
Yeah,
there.
and he was on vacation. He was on vacation, so.
That's all I have.
I got a couple comments here. On the upside, in the last couple of months, I've been trying to mention things that happen good in the community. And I noticed on Channel 6 last night, our very own city employee, Mr. Gerald Gerard, was elected as the potent of the Shriners. And I believe this is a pretty big organization, UP-wide. I know they're nationwide, and they do a lot of good, great services for the sick. And that's a pretty esteemed position for Mr. Gerard to hold. And that's what I like to see, the people in the city and city employees, anybody, get involved in the community. Just another little note here. Again, watching Channel 6, it seemed to be a big deal that the city of Iron Mountain is allowing ATVs on their streets now. When we've been doing this for 4 years, and we never got any press for doing this. And I'd like to think they're following our footsteps, but they got all the press on it because they bragged up about how this helps the businesses in town where these ATVs come in. And then on the downside, there's one bad thing here. The state of Michigan was voted second worst in the United States to winter. So now you know why we have a lot of snowbirds. That's all I have. Mr. Carlson, any comments?
No, thank you.
Great.
I have none.
Mary,
Nothing.
looking for a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Support.
Mrs. Drew,
Yes?
Mr. Babalani,
Yes.
Mr. Menegini,
Yes.
Mr. Pop.
Yes. You did.